Greetings, dear friends. I'm so happy to see you today. And the topic of our webinar today is testing season, tips, tools, and strategies. Why? Because it's almost the end of the first semester, and it is really time for all the teachers to think about how to test our students and how to make this season less stressful for all of us, for teachers, for students, for parents, for everybody. So first of all, for me, to see and to understand that you can hear me well and that you can see me well, I would like to ask you kindly to give me the answer to the following question. If you are ready to listen, if you are ready to participate in the webinar, please put a plus or a minus in the chat box as an answer to the following question. Have you ever been tested? Have you personally ever been tested? If you have, put a plus. If you haven't, put a minus. It is just not a very serious question, just for me to see that you can hear me well. Wonderful. Yes, thank you. In our life, we have all probably been tested, not only at school. Have been tested, for example, while getting a driving license or just doing any other kind of things. We often get tested, but very often we can see that some tests that we have to take are not of a very good quality. Sometimes the situation is very stressful. Sometimes the questions are not really appropriate. So today we are going to speak about how to make tests better. And I will share some of the tips with you, some of the tips that I have come up with and some of the examples of tests that I personally have used. So first of all, a few words about myself. My name is Ганна Дудіч, and I am a teacher of English, and I am also a vice principal at Taras Shevchenko Gymnasium in Kropivnitsky. I am a Global Teacher Prize 2017 Top 50 finalist, a speaker of Global Education and Skills Forum in 2018 and 2019, and an ambassador of a great number of different educational programs and platforms, such as the Varki Teacher Ambassador, Penpal Schools Ambassador, Scientix Ambassador, and also 100 Ambassador and Country Lead, Nearport Certified Educator, and National Geographic Certified. Being a member of all these educational communities gives me a possibility to get some ideas from colleagues from other countries and use them here in Ukraine and share them with you. And I'm really glad to share my experience as well as experience of my foreign colleagues. Being here at this webinar today, I would like to attract your attention to this wonderful platform that is called Urok. And I would like to thank this platform for providing us the opportunity to share our experience. And I'm sure that you also appreciate everything that this platform gives us. So, the plan of our webinar today is the following. We are going to speak about preparation strategies because before every test, before any kind of test, there goes a preparation stage, and we need to prepare students for the test. We are going to speak about how to design a good test, and we will look at the difference between testing and assessment. We are going to speak about creative inclusive tests, because tests should not be only for strong students or should not be only for weaker students. They should be for everybody. So how to make inclusive tests, how to test students of different abilities. We are going to speak about online tools for testing because fortunately different online platforms and different games and gamified activities can be used for designing really cool tests. And there are lots of benefits of using online testing for such activities, because they usually provide you with feedback, and they usually give teachers a really great picture of analysis. And we are also going to speak about the stage that follows testing. So you have tested your students, and what is next? There goes feedback, analysis of mistakes, and recycling of material, of vocabulary, of grammar, of speaking points. So how to do it in order to make sure that your students won't make the same mistakes again. So first of all, before coming to the point of testing, I would like you to have a look at these two pictures. When we decide to test our students, first of all, we need to ask ourselves what we teach and what we test. So what we test depends on what we teach. In a traditional classroom, we focus on basic skills such as reading, grammar, translation, listening, of course. So 4 basic core skills. In a flexible learning environment, in an innovative classroom, in the new Ukrainian school, if you want, we usually focus on not only on 4 basic skills, but also on real life communication. Because actually, that is what language is for. It is for communication. Communicating in oral situations, I mean orally, communicating in writing, being able to understand what people are telling you, even if you do not know some words, or if you do not know how to put the words correctly into a sentence, you need to be able to express your ideas. So that is what we teach our students, not to be afraid to speak up, not to be afraid to write, but to be ready to communicate with people of different cultures in English, using English as an international language. So here comes a great question. What do we test then? If we need to test at the end of the semester 4 core skills, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, but at the same time, we need to focus on such things as real-life communication and developing 21st century skills, our competencies. How can we combine these 2 ideas? Actually, we can. And when we design our tests, which will test 4 core skills, we need to keep in mind also communication and collaboration. These things, of course, are really difficult to be tested, but I will show you some examples today how we can do it by developing different rubrics. So first of all, we need to keep in mind that there should be some kind of a balance between knowledge, skills, and competencies. And a successful language learner will appear only when we, as teachers, focus equally on developing reading, writing, speaking, listening, as well as 4C, critical thinking, collaboration, cooperation, and creativity. Of course, the top circle skills, reading, writing, speaking, listening, are quite easy to test. As for critical thinking, collaboration, cooperation, and creativity, they are a little bit more difficult, or much more difficult to test. But we can design the test questions or the test tasks keeping in mind critical thinking, collaboration, cooperation, and creativity, and we will not test them, but we will develop them even while testing our students. The first stage before we design any kind of test is preparation for a test. And you know that in all the methodological documents, in all the methodological recommendations for the new Ukrainian school, there is a key word, self-assessment. We need to teach our students since the early age how to understand what level they have, what they need to learn, what they need to revise, and how to become independent learners. I would like to share with you a self-assessment page from the Wider World book, textbook that I use in my class. And I would like to show you how self-assessment can help students prepare for testing. At the end of each unit, in our textbooks, we have self-assessment pages. Students are given different exercises. The first section of exercises has to deal with the vocabulary that we learned during the unit. The second part of exercises deals with grammar. Then there will be some exercises that test the knowledge of communicative phrases and will help us to understand how speaking is developed during the unit. For these exercises, we have the answers, the key, at the end of students' workbooks. But students know that they do usually these exercises at school during the lesson, and then they open the page with the answers and they check themselves. And then after they correct the mistakes, their own mistakes, they have this self-assessment page that you can see now on your screens, and they put themselves little smiles. If they have made no mistakes, for example, in vocabulary exercises, they can put a tick in the box with 2 smiles. If they have made 1 or 2 mistakes in the whole scope of vocabulary exercises, they would put a tick in the box with 1 smile. If they have made quite a lot of mistakes, they may put a tick with in the box with sad smiles. And 2 sad smiles would mean that they do not understand. The legend, the key to understanding this self-assessment, is on top of the self-assessment page, and children understand how to grade themselves. These are not marks, these are nice smiles, and they show students how well they know the material, how well they are prepared for testing. If, for example, a student puts a tick in the box with 1 sad smile or 2 sad smiles, next to this box they have a reference. It's written there that they can find their necessary material in their students' books or in their workbooks, and the pages are indicated. And it is very convenient for students to revise the material because they know exactly where to look for necessary information. This self-assessment page is not used to grade students. It is used to help navigate, to help them prepare for testing, which will be the next lesson. Also, they have a possibility to answer the following questions or to put ticks to the following sentences. I can talk about this and this. That would be the topic of the unit that we covered. I can use, for example, this type of grammar. I can find details in the article that I read. I can use, for example, such structures. I can make up dialogues or conversation with my fellow students. I can greet them. I can introduce others, depending on what you study with your students. So this helps them understand what they really learned and what they need to revise. They can also share the words that they remember from the unit, the words that they learned somewhere not from the textbook, for example, from some extra resources, or they can share the phrases, useful expressions, word combinations. After we do this in class, I, as a teacher, walk along and see how many sad smiles and happy smiles they have ticked, and I can give them a piece of advice of what to revise and just make some, highlight some important ideas, how to prepare better for testing. This technique has proved very successful, and I think that actually for such self-assessment, you do not need to have exactly this type of textbooks. You can design this self-assessment page for your students using your textbooks, the ones that you use in your classroom. So it can be done for any kind of textbook, but it needs a little time. You need to develop it yourself, and I'm sure that you will find it really useful. when we speak about testing, we need to differentiate two very similar ideas, testing and assessment. When we speak about assessment, we understand that assessment is a procedure, and we can assess our students during the instruction, that is during the lesson, during the period of learning, and after we cover some material, after we cover the unit. And assessment is broader. It is broader than testing. When we speak about testing, we need to keep in mind that a test is a product, and a test is usually done after the instruction. That is, after we teach something. And a test is actually a form of assessment. So it is more narrow than assessment. How to design a good test? So first of all, usually tests have got the following kind of tasks. It can be a multiple choice test, it can be filling the blanks or closed test, it can be type in, where students are asked to type in or to write in a word or a phrase that they are learning, or to give a word from the definition. For example, they will read the definition and they need to provide a word. We can use matching, reordering, when we ask students to put the words in the correct order, or paraphrasing, when we give one structure and ask them to use a different structure. There are some ideas, some key points that we need to keep in mind when we design a test for our students. First of all, we should design the tasks for our test, keeping in mind increasing difficulty. We should start with easy tasks and then move to more difficult ones. We also need to keep in mind the rule of recycling of grammar and vocabulary. What I mean here is that when we, for example, design a vocabulary test, when we want to test our students' vocabulary, it would be great to use grammar structures that we studied during this unit. So we will not test grammar here, but students will see the grammar structures one more time, and they will keep in mind the grammar that we were learning, even while being tested on vocabulary. If we want to test their knowledge of grammar, it would be really cool if you design the sentences, for example, for your grammar exercise, using the vocabulary that you learned in this unit. So in such a way, you repeat the vocabulary or grammar and revise it even when you do not test it. You need to write on your test papers how much is each task. I mean, how many points you will give for each task. For example, if for the whole test your students can get 50 points, so 50 points would be the top mark, then each exercise that your test consists of should have, at the end of the exercise, at the bottom, should have a mark how many points a student can get for this or that task. It will help your students see which tasks are easier, which tasks are more difficult, and they can spread their attention in the necessary way, and they can manage their timing. They may start with easier tasks and move on to more difficult ones, or maybe some students, stronger students, would prefer to start with more difficult tasks and then leave the easier tasks for the end of the lesson. So you should provide your students with this type of information. Each test task should have clear instructions and explanations. You should make them visible. So make instructions clear and visible. For example, write them in the bold type or in bigger font so that your students will see them. And also, before each test, you need to explain how to do each exercise. You need to make sure that every student understands what to do in each exercise and how to provide the answers. Should they just circle the correct answers, or should they write down the answer in their answer sheets or exercise books, whatever. you should keep in mind what exactly you would like to test. If it is a language test, you will test vocabulary, grammar, speaking, use of English. If it is the skills test, you will test reading, writing, listening, speaking, that is the ability to do something. So you can make also a combined test that will be both language test and skills test. It depends on your purposes, what your purpose is, so what initially you would like to test. I told you that you can test not only the 4 core skills, but you can test also 21st century skills. How to design a test which can help you assess the 21st century skills. My advice would be for you to visit Penpal School's website, or this platform has been recently renamed to Go Pangea. This is a really cool platform which provides different projects or so-called opportunity for students to collaborate with their friends from different countries and study the material which is given there on the platform, and then provide the answers to the questions that are given after the material, and these answers to the questions should be written down there on the platform. It's like a chat between students, among students of different countries. But it is very closely observed by the teachers from both sides. You can see here on the screen the topics like environment, for example, robots, the world news, festivals, etc., etc. As you can see, all these topics resonate with the topics of our program. For example, if you are studying environment, the topic of environment, of nature, you can choose this topic on Penpal Schools, and your students will be able to communicate with their peers, discussing this topic with friends from different countries. So why have I chosen this platform, and why have I decided to show it to you here when we speak about testing? So I just want to show you how you can create rubrics to test your students' different skills, 21st century skills. So you have chosen the topic. For example, here the topic was immigration, and my students exchanged ideas with their friends from the United States, ideas about the problem of immigration. And the question that they discussed in writing was, should your community accept and welcome immigrants from around the world? Why or why not? So my student, you can see my student's answer, and then below you can see the reaction of a student from the USA to my student's answer. These are like comments in social networks, for example, but only teachers and students can see these comments. So after your students write their answer and their pen pals from different countries write their answers, you as a teacher can see these answers, and the teacher from the other country, from the other participating class, can see the answers, and you can grade your students' answer. You can assess and guide your students. Here is the example of different points that can be assessed. You can customize how you grade your students. You can choose from over 40 assessment criteria aligned to academic standards. You can grade your students' work for reading comprehension, writing, social emotional skills, digital citizenship. So as you can see, not only 4 skills are tested and graded, but also different other skills, 21st century skills or soft skills can be assessed. And this tool is really worth looking at, is really worth taking into account. And we can use it, for example, when we ask our students to produce a piece of writing during the test. You can grade such ideas as a student supports claims. So, and you can decide how much you would give for such an idea. Like it can be 5 stars, as you can see here, or it can be in points, like 25 points or whatever. It's up to you to design. So you yourself can design rubrics for your test. Spelling. Was spelling correct in your student's piece of writing? Or even if he or she wrote, for example, a letter, as we teach our students in the senior classes to do while preparing for our independent state testing. What about grammar? Was grammar correct? Then also collaboration. How can you test collaboration? If your students work on a platform like this, collaboration is tested easily. If they answer their peer or pen pal's report or replies, if they communicate with their pen pals, if, for example, you do not take this platform, but you want to adopt this assessment guide, and you want to assess collaboration of your students while writing a letter, for example, your students write a letter in their exercise books, and it's like a test in writing, preparing for independent state testing exam. So if your student uses collaborative phrases or communicative phrases in cliches in their letter, you can put marks for collaboration. Empathy. So when the topic of your student's work is connected with communicative ideas, does your student show empathy in his or her writing? Then you can also speak about being responsive, using punctuation correctly, being able to resolve conflict. If your student participates, for example, in such online dialogue, and the opinion of his opinion and opinion of his opponent, of his pen pal, differ. How they decide this difference? Do they find a good way to sort it out or not? So it depends on you as a teacher what points will be included in this assessment guide. My idea was to show you that you can assess not only 4 skills, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, but you can assess much more. When we create tests, we need to keep in mind that one size does not fit all. We need to keep in mind that there are different types of students in our classroom. There are a lot of students that have problems with comprehending what they can see in their test papers. Lots of dyslexic students. How to design a test that would give the opportunity for students with learning difficulties to be successful? Well, there are some tips that I have come up with and that I have used in my class. If you have some students with learning difficulties in your classroom, I would advise you to break down the tasks into smaller chunks. It can be the same exercise that you use in your ordinary test, but I would advise you, for example, to divide it into 2 or 3 parts. If it is a gap fill exercise, and you have 8 sentences with gaps, divide it into 2 parts and provide the words that your students need to put in these gaps. In this way, they will still do the same kind of task, but it will be a little bit easier for them. And it is easier for students with dyslexia to concentrate on smaller bits of information. Also, I would like to advise you to use bigger font. Not, for example, Times New Roman 14, but you can use font Times New Roman 24 or even bigger. Of course, you will have to use more paper to print out this test. But believe me, your students will have better results. And you will feel better because if your students are successful, if you give them the opportunity to be successful, to show their knowledge, then you as a teacher will be satisfied. Also, this tip will help not only students with dyslexia, but students who have problems with their eyesight. And you know that in our classrooms, unfortunately, probably more than 50% of students have difficulties, have problems with their eyes. And in such a way, if we make fonts bigger in test papers, we will help them, because we do not test their ability to see the text. We test their ability to understand English. Also, I would advise you to provide different task types. For example, if for ordinary tests you use like closed test, where there are just gaps with no options of the words which you put into these gaps, it would be fine for students, for stronger students. If you have students, for example, with such learning difficulties as dyslexia or any other learning difficulties, it would be easier for them to do the same the same exercise, but of a different type. When they have the options, when they can see the options, change the type of tasks into drag and drop. So provide them the words in the box before the exercise and tell them that choose the words from the box to complete the sentences. Also, I would advise you to avoid illustrations, because for students with learning difficulties, illustrations may distract their attention. Avoid using distractors. Very often in our test papers, we have such instructions. Use the words from the box to fill in the blanks. Attention, there are 3 extra words. It happens often during our ZNO test exams. For students with learning difficulties, I would advise you to avoid these distractors. I mean, to provide the exact number of the words to be put into the sentences. Also, there is such an interesting fact that for dyslexic students, it is easier to perceive information when it is not on the white paper, but on soft pastel color of paper, cream paper, but not white. So if you print at least 3 or 4 test papers on soft pastel color or on cream paper, and if you know or if you think that there are some dyslexic students in your class, it would be really much easier for them to do the test on such kind of paper. And of course, provide clear instructions. That is good. That is the necessary point. This is a must, not only for students with learning difficulties, but for any kind of students. Of course, we have different students in our classrooms, and probably a classroom where all students are of the same level is an utopia, I should say. And how to differentiate our tests when we have a mixed ability class. How to create a test that would be good for all students, that would allow us to create a situation of success for all our students and to really test their abilities. I use such a differentiation technique that I learned when I was on one of the professional development sessions in our city. This technique was shown to us by one of the American Council volunteers. So when you have a class of students, after the first test or after the first theme, you put the names of your students not in the alphabetical order, but according to their academic success. So first you put the names of the students who have top marks or excellent marks. then the students who have good marks, then the students who have average marks, and the beginners, the students who have who struggle with their English, who have low results. Then, if you want to create a group of students of the same academic level, you will look at your horizontal line and choose the students horizontally. And in your group, you will have students of the same level, excellent or good or below average or beginners. If you want a mixed ability group, then you need to look at your list of students vertically. And you will have in the same group one student with excellent level, one student with good level, one student below average, and one beginner, for example. If you design tests of different level and you want to give different test papers for students of different abilities, you will choose horizontal lines. And for example, students with high level of academic success will have one type of tests or test types. Students with average or below average academic results will have another type of tasks. Beginners will have tasks that they will be able to do. But be careful, when you give students such kinds of tasks, they should have a possibility to move to a higher level when they finish their task. So it shouldn't be like this, that your students do the tasks of the beginner level, and that is all, and they cannot move above grade 4, for example. They should know exactly that after completing their level, they can do the task from a higher level, and then higher, until they reach the top. If you want to, for example, give a group task or to test your students' ability to work in a group, and you want to test, for example, 21st century skills, soft skills, you can create a mixed group where you will have students of different academic levels in one group, but your task will not be, for example, to test their 4 language skills, but you will try to assess their ability to communicate, to collaborate, to come up with creative solution of the task, of a creative task that you give them. We tried in our school to compose such kind of tests at the end of semester, taking into account all the above mentioned ideas. And I deliberately put the title of this slide in Ukrainian, and we call it Незалежна експертиза знань in our school. And why I put it in Ukrainian? Because we use this kind of testing not only at the lessons of English, but actually in all core subjects, in Ukrainian language, in mathematics, in English, and let me tell you how we use it and what actually it is. We want to see how good we are at testing our students, and we want to have an independent look at what we do. After giving our students semester tests, we ask them to write the independent testing, which we, in these 3 subjects that I told you, in Ukrainian, in mathematics, and in English, and then we compare the marks that they get for their independent testing with their semester mark or with their semester tests. And usually this independent testing is not included into their semester mark. It is just a marker for teachers to see how well we test our students, how well we teach our students, because the independent testing is checked not by the teacher who teaches in this class. We usually design tests for grades from 4 to 8. they are checked, as I told, by independent teachers. They are compared with semester results of our students, and they give us the real picture. So how well we assess our students during the learning process. Each test for independent testing at our school consists of 4 levels. Each level is worth 3 points. So a student gets 3 points for the basic level. Then the tasks of the second level are also graded for 3 points. Then 3 points for the third level and 3 points for the fourth. All in all, 12 points for the whole test. The difficulty is increasing gradually. In the first level, we provide multiple choice single questions. And if we speak about English, we usually test vocabulary, grammar, and communicative phrases learned during the whole semester. In the second level, we increase the difficulty and we ask our students to do drag and drop exercises where they are given, for example, the words at the beginning of the exercise and they need to put them in their sentences. Or definitions where they have a definition and they need to come up with a word. Or a matching exercise where the definitions are matched with the words, or the beginning of the sentence is matched with the ending of the sentence. The next level is still more difficult, and here we use the type-in kind of exercises where children are given some sentences with gaps and they need to write down the proper words in the gaps. Or paraphrasing, where we learn different structures and we ask our students to paraphrase the sentence using the structure that we are learning. Or we ask them to open the brackets and put the verb in the correct tense form, for example. And the last level is level 4, which is a creative level. And the creative task is usually to give us the answers to the WH questions, or to write short notes or short written messages, not the whole essay or letter or composition, but because we need to keep in mind that it's a test for 45 minutes. But several sentences would be enough for this kind of creative task, and they would be enough to be graded for 3 points. So this same structure, the structure is the same for mathematics, for Ukrainian language. So the level of difficulty is increasing, and we start with multiple choice and we finish with creative tasks. At the beginning of our webinar, I told you that we can use different kinds of online platforms or online tools that can help us test our students. One of the platforms that I'm using is called Nearpod, and I had a separate webinar here on the Urok platform where I taught teachers how to use Nearpod. Here I will just give you the example of how to make tests with Nearpod. So first of all, what is Nearpod? It is an online tool which can be used for ordinary lessons and for testing as well. So when you create your teacher's account on this Nearpod platform, you are able to design interactive presentations. And in your presentations, you can include such questions or such activities as open-end question, where you give a question which students see on their devices. For example, they can access the Nearpod presentation from their devices, from the mobile devices like smartphones or tablets, or at home from laptops, or you can project the interactive demonstration on the whiteboard screen, but still you need them to answer. So it would be better for them to give you the answers using their mobile devices. So open-ended question, where you give the question and student writes down the answer. matching pairs, where you will be able to test in a form of matching. For example, match a word and its definition. And students will have to pair up the words and the definitions. You can design a quiz. It can be a true-false quiz with true-false questions, or it can be multiple choice. You can use such an activity which is called Draw It. It goes well with diagrams, labeling, so anything where the students have to write something. Or you can use fill in the blanks, where there would be an abstract and then some gaps, and students will have to put the words into the gaps to come up with a paragraph, for example, with a piece of writing. The best part about using Nearpod in testing is that after your students complete the tasks that you designed, you as a teacher get a really cool feedback and analysis. So here I have recorded a short video for you from a demo, Nearpod demo. As you can see, this is how your report or analysis sheet that you get as a teacher looks like. You can see the number of slides, which is the number of tasks that you gave to your students. You can see the participation, the percentage of participation of each student compared with the overall class participation. So if your student has participated in all the activities, answered all the questions that you designed, that would be 100% of participation. And then there is a detailed analysis of each answer. The program gives you the detailed analysis, and it shows you with green dots if the questions were correct, because you as a teacher put right or wrong when you design the test. It is very similar to designing a test in Google Forms, where you mark the correct answers. You need to do it only once to mark the correct answers, and then the program will give you the complete report. Then it compares the results of each student to the average results of the whole class and shows you how well this student did compared to the group in general. And you can see the average score, and if you see that, for example, as here in this example, the average score is 94%, it means that you probably can give the student 12 points or 11 points for his testing. You can also share individual results with students, and on those individual feedback pages, they will not see the results of other students, but they will see only their results. You can share these results, test results, with parents, with the form tutor, and interpret these results. Of course, they will be in English. And if you share them with, for example, parents or class tutor, you will have to interpret, you will have to tell them what the tasks were and where the student made some mistakes, in what tasks, in what grammar, in what vocabulary, or whatever. And the final question was, what is next? So, okay, you have designed a test, your students have written their tests, you have graded the tests, or maybe the program or the platform such as Nearpod has graded the tests. So what do you do next? Of course, from my point of view, the necessary part is mistakes analysis. Without calling the names, without telling who made this or that mistake, you need to analyze the typical mistakes. And at the next lesson, after the testing, you need to analyze these mistakes with your students. But you know that for your students to remember material better, it is really good to recycle it, to use this grammar or this vocabulary later, even when they start a new unit, even if they start learning a new topic. For me, the best way to do it is in a form of a game. And the game that I quite often use with my students is called double or quiz. Or it can be also called a typical mistakes casino. Why is it called a casino? Because students get symbolic money for what they do, and it makes the whole process of revising fun. So let me tell you how this game works. Let me share with you the rules of the game. So you divide your class into mini groups, 2, 3, 4 students in each group, depending on how large a class or a group of students is. Teams compete in an oral quiz, trying to get as much money as possible. You need to prepare some sentences from their tests where they made most mistakes. Some of these sentences would be correct, some of the sentences would be incorrect. You need to mix them. For example, take 16 sentences with the grammar that you tested and with lexical material that you tested, and mix them in such a way that you will have 8 correct sentences and 8 wrong sentences. Or you can change the proportion. It depends on the situation. And you need a bag of coins for this. You either print out the sentences and give the worksheets to each group of students, or you can display it on the whiteboard, or write them on the whiteboard, or display the sentences on, for example, on the screen of your computer or on smart TV, whatever. It depends on what kind of equipment you have got, or just write them with chalk on the blackboard. Do not tell your students which sentences are right and which sentences are wrong. Ask your students, ask your teams to guess. The first question would be, take turns and tell me if the sentence is right or wrong. And you should keep the timing. Give your students 10 seconds to decide if the sentence was right or wrong. So if they answer correctly, they get, for example, 10 copies coin, or 5 copies coin. It depends on what kind of coins you prepare. If their answer is wrong, you may ask another group, and they will get the turn to answer, and they will get the coin if the answer is correct. Then, if they guess correctly, for example, that the sentence is wrong, then you ask them to correct the sentence. And if the group provides you the correction, if they do it in the right way, they get another coin. And if they do not give you the correction, then the other group has their turn, and they can correct this sentence. First of all, they learn to collaborate. They learn to work together. You can allow them to use the textbooks or the exercise books where you write down the rules, for example, or the notes where they wrote their work on mistakes after writing the test. It depends on you. Or you may not allow them to do this. It depends on how strong your students are, how well they know their grammar and vocabulary. And the winner is the group who has the most money at the end of the game. And usually these are just coins, and we do not take them because just, I don't know, 1 hryvnia or 2 hryvnias in general would be, so they do not need this money. But we put these coins into the piggy bank, and we keep them in class, and the students know that if somebody, for example, loses money and doesn't have enough money to pay for route taxi to go home, or is hungry and wants to buy something in the school canteen, he or she can borrow the money from the piggy bank and give it back the next day. So this is just how we use the money that the group gets for this kind of activity. But the purpose of the activity is to recycle your grammar, recycle your vocabulary, and show your students that they need to remember what they were tested. And even after finishing the unit, after writing the test, grammar and vocabulary do not disappear. They stay with us for a long time. So that was all actually that I wanted to share with you, and I'm open now for your questions. And if you have any questions, I haven't noticed any questions in the chat, but if you have any, I would be happy to give you the answers. So, dear audience, do you have any questions to me? Шановна аудиторія, слухаю уважно ваші запитання. Поки що питань в чаті не побачила. Okay, so I guess I can see only pluses, and probably it means that you will be able to use these activities. What do you think of this? Sometimes I allow students to do the written test prepared to the lesson orally. You mean they read the tasks and give you the answers orally? It depends on what you would like to test. If you want to test a grammar structure, if you want to test the tenses, for example, then I think oral testing would be good. But if you want to check their spelling as well, then you need to ask them to write down the questions. Okay. Thank you very much for your comments, and I hope that you will be able to try out some techniques to design your own tests and create successful tests that will give a situation of success for all of your students. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope to see you later on the Now Урок platform. Goodbye!